for watching our webinar here on medical malpractice in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. I'm a lawyer, and we hold hospitals and healthcare providers accountable when they harm patients and cause catastrophic or life-changing injuries. Now, before we begin, I want to have you take a look at that portrait over my shoulder there. You'll see that portrait, and I just got that as a gift recently from one of my clients. I want to tell you his story. When he was 12 years old, he was paralyzed, and the reason was he was in a DC hospital here, a local hospital. They discharged him without ever reading the MRI that one of his physicians had ordered. He went home. When he later had symptoms, his mom took him back to the same DC hospital. They didn't have the MRI read, so they didn't know the diagnosis, and they couldn't institute the treatment that would have prevented his paralysis. He obviously became paralyzed, could not walk then as a result, and that all occurred when he was 12 years old. Well, his medical malpractice case got him the resources to go to college, to live independently in a house that he owns, and to live with his caregiver, who's his older brother, and to focus on his life and his career now as an artist and a photographer. That's what these cases mean to us, okay? That's why we do this kind of work, and that's why, and that's who we really want to help. I'm proud to say he's a friend of mine now, and he's given me that portrait and one of me as well that I don't have up here, but he nailed it. So he's fantastic. Again, that's what we care about. That's what these cases are about. Now, let me tell you straight up, medical malpractice, it's difficult, it's confusing, it's complicated, it's expensive. So I'm just going to try to give you some of the basics here today. I'm not going to give you any legal advice or any, personal advice necessarily that you can use in your personal situation. But I'll promise you this, that we are lawyers who, we don't advertise. We're not on TV, we're not in the yellow pages, we don't do pay-per-click, we don't do any of that stuff. So we carve out time every week to talk to real people who've been injured, okay? Either due to the medical system, at work, or in an accident on the roads, if you will. So just call us. Call us at 202-393-3320 with any questions you have. We'll set you up for an appointment, and we can talk about that, your situation, privately and confidentially, and get you the answers that you need. Okay. Now, what is medical malpractice? Let's kind of start with the definition, right? Well, medical malpractice occurs when a healthcare provider breaks the rules, basically, and causes harm to a patient. Okay. We have patient safety rules in this country, and those are often called, the legalese for it is the standard of care. What does that mean? Well, standard of care is what a reasonable, prudent physician or healthcare provider would do under the same or similar circumstances, okay? Now, are you entitled to the absolute highest standard of care, the best specialist in the world, whoever that may be? No, it's what a reasonable, prudent doctor or healthcare provider would do given the situation. That's what we call the standard of care. That's what we call a patient safety rule usually, okay? And look, we all have rules in life. I mean, a pilot can't take off without going through his checklist and his rules. That's one of the rules the airlines has for him. Gosh, it's the same with a bus driver, construction workers, steam fitters, plumbers. They all have rules on what they need to do before the inspection occurs or before they'll pass the inspection, right? Lawyers have rules, judges have rules. You certainly have rules in your own occupations and in your own lives. And out on the roads, we all have rules of the road. So it's really nothing different. The patient safety rules are really what should be done in a situation, given the patient's complaints and their test results and their condition and what have you. Okay, so now that sounds great, right? But how do you know? How do you know whether a physician violated the patient safety rules? Well, medical malpractices are quite a bit different than other cases. And here's one of the main reasons they're so different. they require a significant investigation. You've got to hire and work with experts in all different specialties so that you can determine what the rules are, what the standard of care is for that situation. Okay, now that sounds expensive, doesn't it? Well, it is expensive, but you've got to do that from the outset to understand your case, your situation. Now, are there times when expert physicians review the situation and say, well, there's nothing that went wrong, even though the patient was harmed? There's nothing the doctor, the nurse, the hospital did wrong. Absolutely, that happens. And that's one of the reasons you do the investigation, okay? Now, let's say that the investigation with the experts comes back and they say, yes, this was the patient safety rule and it was violated. I mean, what next? Are you finished? No, you're really just kind of getting started, because the next issue is what we call causation. Did that violation of the patient safety rule, did that violation of the standard of care, did that cause your harm? Now, would you expect that you'll need expert physicians usually to review and analyze and testify about the causation part, about whether that violation of the rule caused the harm? Absolutely you do, okay? And that's one of the reasons that, yes, these cases take a long time. Yes, they are expensive and complicated, but that's the initial the initial determination that you do. Now, we get a question a lot. Do you take cases where the person's gotten better, or maybe the injury wasn't so bad, it was a minor injury, or what have you? And this is a little controversial, but I'll tell you, the answer is no, we don't. And here's why. We want to spend all of our time and resources working with people that we can help, working with people that we can really make a significant difference in their lives. So that's why we focus on only helping people who have catastrophic or life-changing injuries, because we go really deep into the cases and working with our clients quite candidly and meeting with them and understanding what they need and what happened to them and how we can help them. So we can only do that with a few people every year, as you can imagine. Now, look, a lot of lawyers will tell you, oh, yes, you have a case, even if it was just a minor injury, right to the hospital, maybe they'll pay you something or you can get something out of it. We don't really work that way. There may be other lawyers who do that, but for our purposes, we focus on people that we can really help and make a difference in their lives. Now, are there differences in DC, Maryland, and Virginia? Yeah, absolutely. Of course there are. And let's go through a few of those. We're here in Washington, D.C., but we also have cases in Virginia and Maryland, and all three are different. First, the statute of limitations is different, and that's different in all three, and there's a lot of different factors that could go into that, okay? Was the patient an adult or a child? Did the patient continue to receive medical care from the doctor or the healthcare provider that caused the malpractice? So there's a lot of things to go into as far as the statute of limitations goes. One practice tip I will give you, or one tip, is if you think that you have a case, or you have a case, for your child, or for your mother, or someone else that you care for, don't wait to get it evaluated. And the reason is that we won't, and certainly most medical malpractice lawyers who are experienced and trustworthy, they won't agree to investigate a case if it is close to the statute of limitations, because there's not enough time to do a thorough investigation. And we have an entire system of how we investigate a case, the experts that we choose, the analysis, the medical research that we do, the communication with you. You can expect, a lot as far as that goes. But again, we don't have time to do that if there's only a few months before the statute of limitations will expire. Okay, so what's another difference? Well, all three jurisdictions, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, they all have some kind of a notice requirement or a certification requirement or report requirement. For example, in Virginia, you can't serve a case once you file it on the doctor or the hospital, the healthcare provider, unless you have an expert certify that it's a meritorious case, that it's a a legitimate case. In DC, there's a notice provision that you have to give to any intended healthcare provider, any provider before you file the lawsuit. And that's got to be given 90 days in advance. And you've got to be careful that you count that out correctly, that you're not too close to the statute of limitations, for example. Now, in Maryland, there's also a certification requirement. An expert has to certify that the case has merit and has to write a report, sign a report that the case has merit. Those cases have to be filed in a separate government agency called Health Claims, and then they're transferred over to the circuit court in Maryland. So as you can see, all these three are very different just from the initial outset, from getting the case started. Now, the damages are also very different, okay? Now, remember, the damages in a case, I mean, that's sort of the legal term for the harms and losses that the malpractice causes, okay? So if your harms and losses could be, paralysis, it could be cerebral palsy for a child or developmental delay, could be death, unfortunately, in a wrongful death case. So whatever the harms or the losses are, the damages, those can be impacted by where the case is filed. For example, Maryland limits non-economic damages like pain and suffering, okay? DC does not have any limits on damages, but the damages are different for death cases versus injury cases when the person's still alive. And Virginia has a cap on all medical malpractice damages, and it changes, adjusts a little bit every year, but it's still what we call a hard cap, meaning you can't recover more than that, no matter how severely you are damaged. We have a case right now where, unfortunately, a person has lost, significant use of their limbs. They cannot get any more for their harms and losses than the law requires in that state in Virginia. Okay, so those are some things to be thinking about as well, or to be understanding as well, and that's part of the investigation or evaluation of the case. And of your situation, is this the best place to bring a lawsuit? Can we bring it in another jurisdiction? Would that be better for you and your family? Okay, that's all part of the initial evaluation. Now, sometimes we get a call or a question, and it's basically, can I handle the lawsuit? Can I handle a case, medical malpractice case, on my own successfully? And realistically, the answer is no. That's really unlikely, I would say. And we tell people all the time who've been in a car accident with minor injuries or have a work injury, but they're back to work, that they can handle those on their own because the injuries are not significant. The system's a lot different. They don't have all of the expert requirements and filing requirements that the medical malpractice system does have, and that the laws require in a medical malpractice case. So if you're thinking about doing this on your own, I would really be leery about that, and definitely talk to other people and other lawyers about what they think about that situation. Now, there's a couple of things that we also get kind of asked, or that we see, and that's, how do you find the best medical malpractice lawyer for you and for your family? Okay, and I'd say that depends on a number of things, but for us, the number one criteria that we have is trust. We've got to be able to trust you, and you've got to be able to trust us. This is a long-term relationship, and it's a deep and meaningful one. And we want to make sure that everyone that we help trusts us, and that we can do as effective a job as possible, for you and for your family. Okay, so that's the first thing I would say would be trust. The second is experience. Look, all the hospitals, all the insurance companies, they know the lawyers who actually handle these cases and litigate these cases and try these cases. There's no real pretenders out there. So when you are interviewing a lawyer or talking to him or her over the phone, they should be able to tell you who represents the other side. They should be able to tell you whether they've had a case that was similar to yours. They should be able to tell you their experience with this hospital or that hospital. They should be able to tell you, a rough estimate of the time frame, how long your case would take, whether it's in Baltimore City or Prince George's County or Washington, D.C. or Fairfax County, and what to expect. And they should be able to give you, the basic guidelines, some of them that I've outlined today. Now, we've also got something that'll help people find the best lawyer for themselves and for their family. We've got a comprehensive guide, a list of questions to finding the best lawyer for you and your family. And you're welcome to call our office. Our number is 202-393-3320. We can email it to you. And that's got a lot of the questions that you should ask any lawyer you're considering hiring for a medical malpractice case. Okay, so you can make sure that you get the best person for you and for your family. One of the things we do, of course, is at the beginning we give you a game plan, a roadmap of what to expect. And we do that really from the very beginning, because when someone leaves my office after I've met with them, or I leave their home, if they can't, if their injuries prevent them from traveling, I want to make sure of a couple of things. I want to make sure that I've taken away some of that stress and anxiety that they have over their situation, because it's life-changing. If someone can't work, they have a child who now needs 24/7 care. If someone can't use their legs, they're paralyzed. That's a whole different way of life than they've been used to, and they're anxious and scared and worried. I want to take some of that away right from the get-go. The other thing is I want you to know what to expect. Okay, as far as it's going to take this long to do this part, or we need to answer this question, and we're going to do the medical research on this, or we're going to have a nurse, evaluate you for this, or we're going to talk to expert physicians about this. And that's another way to sort of put people at ease. So I'd be looking for those kinds of things if you're looking for an attorney for a serious medical malpractice case. Now, one of the other things I want to touch on is if you have a child who has developed cerebral palsy or brain damage or developmental delay or paralysis or what have you due to medical care. We do have one thing that can really help you, I think, and that's our Parent's Guide to Medical Malpractice. We call it Picking Up the Pieces. And this guide is available to anyone in DC, Virginia, or Maryland. Again, you can call our office or go to our website, and we'll go ahead and send it to you for free, no obligation. But it's designed to help you deal with some of the the effects of the harms and losses that your child has. The other thing we publish is a resource guide. It's called the Special Needs Resource Guide. And that's for children with special needs here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. That's got information on anything from respite care to camps, to medical issues, finances, education, you name it. And again, that's free to any family with a special needs child here in the DMV. And again, a child's case is much different for a couple of reasons. One, the statute of limitations is different. Two, it's often more complex, especially if the injury happened during childbirth or due to prematurity. It can be, due to the medical care that the mom received that injured her baby. So those cases typically take longer to evaluate, to understand the child's functioning and what he or she is going to need. The other reason that those cases are so critical and so important is that while you may be able to take care of your child at this point, even a severely disabled child, that child is probably going to outlive you. And, you want to make sure that you do everything you can to give that child the resources. Like my now friend, my former client, when he was younger, to make sure that you give your child the resources so that he or she can, not just survive, but thrive, but live with family and not have to worry about having a roof over her head or getting the 24/7 medical care or nursing care that he needs. So that's why these are so important. Now, a couple quick things. Like I said at the beginning, any questions at all, please call us, 202-393-3320. If we can't help you, we'll try to get you the answer or get you to someone who can. And then the other thing is our website has a lot of great information on it as well that's more specific and that can help you. And that's www.donahoecarney.com. Finally, since you've stayed with us for this brief webinar, but nonetheless, it's just been me up here talking. I want to offer you a free gift. And that free gift is available if you call our office. It is our Patient's Guide to Medical Malpractice in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. And what that has is a lot of information about what a medical malpractice case is, how to file it, where to file it, what you need to get ready, a little bit more about how to find the right lawyer, some examples of medical malpractice. We get lots of questions about that, about whether a certain situation caused harm or was medical malpractice to a patient or a child. So go ahead and give our office a call. We'll send that right out to you. These are all free. There's no obligation, to buy anything. It's not like that at all. We want to be able to give consumers and patients the best information that they have so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. So again, I really want to thank you. Thank you for watching. And I hope it was informative and helped you. So thank you very much.